everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Good Death Podcast. Today, we know we're doing the virtual Good Death book tour. This is one of my favorite guests. She's been on a few times. She's probably not foreign to you if you are in this space, but if you don't know her, you want to get to know her. This is Karen Wyatt. This is Dr. Karen Wyatt. She's the best-selling author of the books The Tao of Death and 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying. She has spent most of her 25 plus years career in medicine caring for patients in challenging settings, such as nursing homes, hospices, free clinics, and homeless shelters. I just adore that. Her work with patients who were facing the end of life inspired her to write 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying. I want you to hear that, which describes the spiritual lessons she learned from her hospice patients. Dr. Wyatt also hosts End of Life University, an online interview series that features conversations with experts who work in all aspects of end of life care. She is widely regarded as a thought leader in the effort to transform the way we care for our dying in the US. In addition, she's valued for her application of spiritual principles to illness and healthcare, and teaches that in order to live life fully, we must each overcome our fear of death and embrace the difficulties that life brings us. Welcome, Dr. Karen Wyatt, and thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. It's my pleasure. I always love talking with you.
I mean, your bio really says it all. And this last sentence is everything. Live fully, we must each overcome our fear of death and embrace the difficulties that life brings us. So I have been honored to work in this space, and I've learned everything about life from my end of life patients and being here. So let's start with this question. Have we possibly removed, because death is the number one fear in the world, and it's just people are running in the opposite direction. Have we possibly removed the greatest teacher about how to live and to thrive in this lifetime?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. And I think we did it without even realizing what was happening. I think it was just as society evolved, oh, medicine got more sophisticated and more technology. We could do more things, treat more diseases. Oh, this funeral industry grew up around us. And all of a sudden, death slipped away, slipped out of our hands, um,
Yeah.
where we'd been caring for our own dying. And it was lost to us. And honestly, people didn't recognize it, didn't even know that they were losing probably the most valuable tool they had in their lives.
Absolutely. And again, it's almost like my mom always calls it like a perfect storm. So at the same time, in the last 100 years, we've made great medical advances. And in one sense, that's a beautiful thing. But at the same time, we forgot the sacredness of the end of life experience and journey. And we don't teach doctors at all about how to have those conversations, about how to support not only the patient, but the family in that space and even prepare for it. So we talked a minute before we jumped on the podcast and we talked about preparation, right? And even just preparation in planting a seed of awareness that, Suzanne, one day this journey will not be as you know it today. And how critically that important that is for me, because what that has done for me the minute that I started working with those at the end of life is changed my perspective and my level of gratitude of everything. And I'm going to hand it back to you because we do talk a lot about older people and having end of life, but we know that everyone is not offered that gift of a long lifespan for whatever reason. And so knowing that I don't know, how long I have and that time is my greatest commodity, I started thinking, well, let me treat each day like it's one little lifetime. Let me really get present, which is another pearl in this space. But what is important in this day to make sure that I don't miss it? Yeah. So,
And as you were talking about, like when a person has a medical issue or needs to see a medical provider, it's such a would would be such a ripe time to talk about these issues, to talk about the bigger picture of life and life's cycles and the whole trajectory of the seasons of life. But that almost never happens because medicine is so focused on what are your symptoms today? What's your history, your medical history? Always looking back at the history and what's happening right now, but without that bigger perspective. Oh, this is a whole life, and that life will end in a physical death at some point. And without that context, you can't actually see what's happening.
You can, and you can't also, okay, so there's just so many things that we have removed here that's impacting not only end of life's not going well, but in my opinion, life not going as well as it can for people. So when we pretend that we have time and, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. And then the number one regret for my patients is that they thought they had more time and that the time was over. But as a medical professional, speaking about that is to let my patients know if I was a primary doctor or doctor that one day it's going to come where we're going to focus on tight symptom management. So that is because we can get quality of life really high with tight symptom management. And it's also an empowering statement. So knowing that, okay, one day it will come that we're not reversing or attempting to reverse because we know that end of life will be a natural part of the journey, but my doctor's got me and I've already thought about this. So I appreciate the level of functioning I have mentally, physically, all of it right now today because I don't know if things are going to change. So I don't want to miss again the appreciation, which gratitude is the highest level of frequency. But for our medical providers, planting that seed so that it's not a surprise when it comes, I think is something that we can all quickly do on an annual or whatever visit. And, it would change a lot for a lot of different dynamics.
It would so much change so much. And just as for us as individuals, we know getting close to death and allowing death to be our teacher
Mhm.
changed our whole perspective on life and how we live. And I think for medical providers, if they would only allow an awareness of death and get over their own fear and their desire to just reject death, it would change everything for them. And I think it would help with burnout when they had this complete picture of people. And it isn't that my patient died, I failed them. No, no.
Mhm.
They were on their life's path, and this is where life ends up. And I think it could change everything if we just had that bigger perspective that includes death.
I agree. And here's the thing, I have seen end of lives like you have go so well, so beautifully well with presence and symptom management and just knowing the natural way that the body shuts down that if we offered that training to doctors, right? Tight symptom management, treating that, understanding. And what's really beautiful is that we all tend to shut down the same way. It doesn't matter who we are, what color we are, what religion, how much money we have or don't have. The body shuts down in this thing called humanity, which again is a great reminder of how much more we are connected. But also, there are practical things that doctors can do to help patients and families. And you said it before. I am a former oncology nurse, and I have seen doctors walk down the hallway with their head down like they have failed when their 99-year-old patient finally dies from the advanced cancer they have. What have we set up for doctors and this is again how we are expecting them to fix it and to keep life going at all cost. And when somebody dies, we apologize. I'm sorry, there's no more I can do for you. We treat people like they failed, and we talk about battles with cancer.
Mhm.
Like, and I think like what you said in the beginning, we have inadvertently set up this whole fear surrounding this sacred natural experience that can be beautiful and go really well.
And I think one of the issues in hospice care right now is we have placed the managing the care of death and dying in the hands of a system that's terrified of death. So a system that wants to put death in the closet and ignore it, not a system that can lovingly hold it and tend to it and bring the quality to it that everyone needs.
So let's start with that if we can. Let's talk about hospice care right now. And let's talk about the medical system. So we identify that death is the number one fear and that we really don't even welcome the conversation about end of life in any of this space, which is causing huge problems. But hospice is the end of life provider. And once in the United States, that turned into a reimbursed structure. It
Mhm.
became very fragmented and very check the box about how much time can be given, how much support can be given. And I feel like we really lost our way with focusing on the patient and the family. And here's the beautiful thing, and I think we can both speak to this, is that death is not a medical experience. It shouldn't be outsourced. It shouldn't be handed over. It's a human one. And families used to do this care and do it really well and have the skill. It's time to bring that back. It's time to bring, in my opinion, all of the honoring healthcare into my world and my family's world and give us the tools to do that. But let's specifically talk about the end of life space right now and why it's not going well.
Yes, and I think as you alluded to, when the payment system came in place, suddenly hospice became subject to the rules and regulations of the payment system, which does make sense. There's this financial responsibility to be good stewards, but suddenly documentation, paperwork, um, c- and also kind of seeing profit or money as the bottom line, that began to take more and more priority in the hospice system. And it's simply because this business model got applied to something that's spiritual, that's ineffable, that comes from our hearts. And they don't fit together that well.
They don't fit together pretty much at all. So when you talk about a business structure, this is a humanity structure. This is a humanity model of end of life. It has no business being in business. However, it's wonderful to have a medical team that knows end of life, that can prescribe medications, that can come in and do assessments, but it is a small part of this dynamic. It really is up to the family, it's up to the person. It needs to be taken back into our hearts and our hands and our homes. Yeah.
And that's a really good point too, because we have not trained individuals in their own communities and families to provide
Mhm.
this care. All the expectations are on hospice, which is not staffed in such a way or set up in such a way that hospice can fully take over 24/7 the end of life care for an individual. So there's all this disappointment when hospice can't
Yeah.
provide what families hoped for, but the families aren't prepared. No one has ever.
Right. So yeah. So when we don't talk about end of life, we don't know what hospice does or doesn't do. And most families are under the assumption that they will come in and take care of everything at the end of life. And that's not the model. In fact, the model is set up that the hospice nurse is supposed to teach the loved ones to do the care. That's impossible with the 1 hour a week that standard that most people get. So it's not a working model that works well at all. And we need to identify all that so we can change it. Can we talk about the white paper, the Dr. Ira Byock? And you did a beautiful podcast on that. Can you share the white paper, Dr. Ira Byock, a little bit, and then we're going to break that down a bit.
Yes, Dr. Ira Byock, as he is retired now, so he's had time to sit back and reflect on what's happening in the hospice and palliative care
Mhm.
world. And he just felt like there are certain truths right now of what is happening in this industry that are not being brought to light and brought to the surface. And he wrote the paper because he just wanted to say it out loud. This is
Mhm.
what's happening. These are the problems. But he also offered solutions, like four
Sure.
solutions to the problems. But um, primarily looking at, again, as we were saying, this payment system, that opens the door for fraud and abuse, and that
Mhm.
is happening in the business
Yeah.
sector of hospice. There's fraud and abuse. There are overworked staff members because profit has become the bottom line and all that matters, especially when the people managing hospice are not hospice people or medical people.
Right.
They're business people, and so they're running it like some other business, and overworking nurses, overstaffing them, and sometimes cutting corners on very important services because they don't recognize the importance. They don't even understand it. And so
Oh, my
it
heart is just breaking because I'm thinking about everything you just said and going back to my time. I remember in the hospital setting, and again, we're not trying to be judgmental or point fingers. We're trying to really be clear in an observation of where we went wrong here and where we can get this right. In the hospital, you have the interdisciplinary meetings, like management meetings about people in there. And I remember from the very early days of being a nurse, it was all about how do we get them out of the hospital. I never heard much talk about what that family was going through or what they needed more. It was always about the reimbursement, the bottom line. And I really felt, and me as a hands-on nurse in the hospital, the least amount of time I had was with the actual patient.
Mm.
It was documenting, it was pushing medications left and right. And just like you said, the hospices are being run by business people who aren't hospice people. And at the same through line, you talked about the hospice staff killing themselves and burning out, which I think is across all medicine because they're trying to compensate, they're trying to make a difference. And how tragic is that?
Terribly tragic. And it's when the system itself has become devoid of that caring and compassion. So these workers who care very much, who
Mhm,
have the most passionate hearts of anyone I've
mhm,
ever met, they're
mhm,
trying, as you said, they're trying to fill in all the gaps
mhm.
and make up for the deficiencies in our system
Yeah.
personally, individually, by
Yeah.
giving even more, by doing whatever they can to try to help this family, and they're not being supported for all of those efforts behind them. There's no one looking after their well-being, or in fact, they're just being told to work harder, see more patients, spend less time.
Which is insane and awful. And it's not existing because, I've been doing a lot of research on, the medical, the nursing, the doctors, and the statistics of burnout, of, mental, challenges, of physical challenges of people leaving the industry. So you have people not, and I can't blame them at all. And that's exactly what they do. They expect you to see more patients. They're not taking you into account. And so everyone loses in this scenario. So I really honor when people speak the truth, like Dr. Ayurbayak is saying. And so so identify it's being run by a lot of business. There is that room of fraud that has come into play, but also more importantly, I feel like for me is there's the devoid of compassion of the hospice work from the business model. And so how little can we give these people and still get paid? That's sort of what it was. And again, that's just an unfair system. And what else was in that paper?
Well, IRA has a strategic approach to trying to fix things. And one is creating some standards within our care, like setting staff ratios, like the
Yeah.
maximum number of patients that a nurse can carry, and really enforcing those and upholding that. And he also talked about making quality making payment depend on true quality of service and measuring the quality through the patient and family members' eyes. What do they see as quality at the end of their lives? Did they receive that or not? So that quality becomes the bottom line. Oh man,
The
we
benchmark.
quality because that's the only way we're going to get paid. We can't make money at doing this if we're not providing quality.
Okay, I love that. Let's hold on to that for a second because right now, as it works, is that they're paid regardless, right? So that's where, when it turned into a reimbursed profit, people said, "Woo, the more people we have on, we can make X amount." They just because it's not based on any care or any kind of statistics of that. That's beautiful. Now I'm gonna share with you my other side of this is that because I've been in and I've tried to change policy and I've worked with hospitals. It almost takes forever for it to go through that part and that part and that part. And all we want to do is help people. How do I need this to go through 20 channels to show up with compassion and more time to feed somebody in the hospital that's not being fed? Like to me, it's giving away the power almost. So I'm thinking of quick wins we can do today. And I love that policy and calling it out. But also, what we talked about is having families take this back because there's lots of free education. Your podcast is an amazing one. We have free education, but again, bringing back the natural cycle that life and end of life is, and then making sure that I have what I want and let hospice come and complement what you already have, not be the sole provider.
Yes, and you pointed out the entire healthcare system is such a massive bureaucracy. Change is very slow. And I love the changes Ira's proposing, but those are
Yeah.
going to take a lot of time. And meanwhile, there are people dying every day, every moment, who need support and need help. And as you're saying, there are things we can do right now in our own communities that could make a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a couple of a multi-pronged approach, but what I really honor is that people who know from the inside, that hold these spaces like palliative care doctors and nurses and doctors, and say this isn't going well, coming out and speaking the truth, because when families find out, they're in it. And then it's too late. And then they're stuck with complicated grief, and the whole thing really can't go well. So we have a multi-pronged approach of bringing death awareness back and hopefully helping our doctors to consider having on their annuals. And that's again a primary doctor, because this is another, in my opinion, challenge that we're facing. You have doctors that specialize in a certain space, and they're not looking at holistically that person anymore. And so when somebody has this issue, they go and the person's just looking at the kidneys, and what about the other quality of life and all the other things that are going on? Or if they prescribe a certain medication regimen, is it interacting with other meds, or is their liver able to process it? Is their liver challenged? And so there's just so much fragmented, it's not about holistic care anymore. And for me, as a nurse, when you go statistically and look at what people, so we have a couple things going on here. We have the longest lifespan we've ever had in history. And so aging longer than we've ever had. With that is going to come chronic issues, physical, cognitively, possibly, and also financially. That's another thing we'll put on the side. But for me as a practitioner, it's always about quality over quantity and having people, and I'm not seeing that care given today. And so I'm going to use myself as an example. When I go for an annual, which is sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't, because it's so crazy that like the doctor's office is one of the last places I want to go. I don't want to do crazy testing for no reason. I don't want to go on any medication if I don't really, really need it. And that seems to be what's being prescribed. And so for me, when they did the annual, I mean, the testing that they do on your annual physical, for the most part, yes, it would let you know if there was like this, outside situation going on. So that would show up in like, your blood count and things. They test cholesterol usually and vitamin D. There's so much more to wellness than just those factors. And also cholesterol, there, the latest studies that are being done in functional medicine and really diving deep, those are not the hallmark markers of heart disease and things. So are we just going through motions that are not even really making a difference? And for me, let's get to the root of health. Let's make people feel as healthy and great. And the body was designed to repair itself given the right circumstances. Where's that being talked about in healthcare?
Oh, exactly. Oh,
Mhm.
and I mean, I've had a recent experience myself with developing a heart problem and finding the entire focus was only on mechanics and the physical aspect of my heart. In my mind, what I knew is my heart is my messenger, and
Mhm.
I am going to listen to the messenger. And so I created my own program of journaling, doing somatic body work, looking at old trauma and grief that were stored in my heart, reading
Yes.
about that and doing this a huge amount of work that actually shifted everything and made all the difference. And so that aspect of healing is completely left out. It doesn't even exist in the realm of Western medicine whatsoever.
I am so glad you just mentioned that, because one of the things I will talk about at the end of life, and I know you can relate to this, is that many times emotional pain that is unresolved will show up as physical pain. And because it's, and we have that too. And we have that too. So when something, and again, doctors are only looking at this one thing and it's very narrow, and they're not even getting to the root of what it is. And so for me, I don't want to put a medication and a band-aid on something. I want to help somebody find the root cause and heal it, because we know medications have another, 10 to 12 side effects at times. And now the body's completely out of whack. So I love that you shared that, and I love that you did that for yourself, because we are the CEO and the doctor of our own body, right? Because our body's sending us messages. Are we listening to them?
Exactly. All the time, all of our organs, our nervous system, everything. We're getting messages, and
All the time. I need more sleep. You need to unplug from the news. You need to go out and sit under a tree. Like, listen to that. Your body loves you. You're the only one that can give it to you. And no doctor can tell you, oh, well, I don't believe that, what you're saying, because they're not you. You know you best.
Exactly. And they're not the ones who will ask that question either. They don't even know to ask. They don't even know to ask, do you have any trauma or grief from early in your life that you could still be carrying in your heart? They're not going
Right.
to ask about that. I'm the one who knows that history and carries.
Exactly. Exactly. What a beautiful holistic wellness. And we're going to talk a minute because I can almost start crying what our nurses and doctors and healthcare practitioners are going through. So if I looked at this big picture, because I've been doing a lot of studying on this, and I have a lot of people coming to doula givers that are coming out of the system because they're broken and they can't do it anymore, which is like a horrible thing that they have to be forced out. If we have a system that's called healthcare, which to me, there's really no health and there's no care right now in it, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just saying it's an interesting point. If we're not treating the root cause, and if we're giving medications and we're making more people out of whack, and then the nurses and doctors are all trying to clean it up and to help it, and they're literally killing themselves to try and do so. What do we have here as a system at large? We have a broken system that doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve families and patients in real care and health, and it doesn't serve our medical staff. So let's go back to we are human beings. You are holistic. You also, given the right, just like a plant, given the right nutrients, given the right circumstances, the body has a way to repair itself and also feel great. So when we feel good, you know as well as I do, aging is an honor. Aging is an honor. It shouldn't be something that we're trying to avoid or run away from. But I want to feel as great as I possibly can every day. And having a functional medicine and having a doctor who is looking at, you know, the vitamins, minerals, how is my heart? What am I doing to optimally have an amazing day every single day? Should be the goal. And it should be the goal to teach our practitioners that they can practice in that way that really truly is healthcare.
That's so very true. And right now, medical training, at least my experience and from most of the doctors I talk to, and I'm sure it's true for nurses also, we get set up from the beginning with this expectation that we're studying medicine so that we can cure people, we can heal disease and illness, we will help people live longer. And it's such a noble desire and
Mhm.
calling to want to do that. There's so much love behind that desire to heal and cure people. And yet there's never a discussion about the fact that, however, every person that you do help, every person that does become healed of something will still die one day of something else. And so we
Mhm.
have to always acknowledge that. We have to always hold that, even as professionals, as healers who wish that no one would ever die, but they all will. And
Right. Yeah, and it can go really well when we are there. So let's talk about the word healer, because I think every single one of us went into medicine to help heal, to make
yes.
that it, but I don't see the healing. I see compassion. I see compassion from the nurses and the doctors there, but I don't see the healing aspect because we haven't been taught actually how to do healing and we're not given the time to do it. Um, yeah. And the other thing that really concerns me is that looking at chronic illnesses like, heart disease and things, and the medications that come with so many side effects that they are finding, it's almost like they're just routinely putting people on things. They've started studies and they've been out for a bit that some of those medicines are causing more problems and actually aren't the real markers like again cholesterol. There's more determining factors around that. But then the evidence that 30 minutes of just walking a day, going out in nature, I mean, these things are healing and they're wonderful and they're free. Isn't that what we should be focusing on as practitioners?
Exactly. And even as patients ourselves, to be aware of that, I also think I also think that we view pharmaceuticals as the medicine that will heal us, but it is artificial. It comes from outside of us. It isn't a part of us. It's something that we take into our bodies, expecting it to change our bodies and heal our bodies. But as you said, our bodies have their own innate ability to heal. We just need to foster that. And
Yeah.
one thing through my whole heart journey that I've been discovering is that grief, honoring our grief
Yeah.
and being
Yeah.
on a pathway of embracing grief and allowing it to be part of our lives.
Mhm.
Grief is a form of medicine. Grief and accepting, receiving that is one of the ways that we begin to heal ourselves. And that's one of the things we learn from our patients in hospice, from being with the dying, is how to.
Absolutely. That was so beautifully said because when we are present with our emotions, our trauma, our grief, which we all have because this is all about life lessons, it allows us to start evolving, right? It can set you on a path when you go through it of your next beautiful iteration of awareness and maybe what you're supposed to be doing, but also stored energy. So we know everything's energy. I almost think of us like onions, right? Because we have a lifetime that we've gone through and we go through layers and there's things that happen, this is it's supposed to be for our growth of our consciousness. But when we get to a place where I say, I'm ready to look at that, I'm ready to do that so I can peel that layer of the onion, release it, because I almost think of it like a small child, is that it wants to be seen and heard and it wants to be honored and it will start punching its way to get your attention. And that to me could be, again, pain, disease processes. And I've had people in cancer, which is completely at the beginning when I heard it, I couldn't believe people were saying this. Now I understand it. They say that I know why I got that cancer, and they could pinpoint it to an unresolved trauma or something that they had or anger that they had. And then many of them would say that cancer was the best thing that happened for me. Because when they were able to, they didn't have any choice now, but kind of sit with that and go to that space, they were able to move it and heal it and then allow what it was to provide them for a level of conscious awakening that allowed them to feel so much more evolved and beautiful. We don't want to be ill and to have that, but we want to understand what that pathway looks like.
And I think how much more gratifying would the practice of medicine be if every oncologist had heard these stories and said, wow, this is actually where the real miracle is. It isn't so much in the drugs that I prescribe, it's in people's awareness expanding, being able to look at their whole lives and understanding these patterns and how things evolve in the body. And I could help with that. I could ask them some questions. I could give them some information and things to think about as they're doing all the treatments I'm prescribing, but other things they could be working on at the same time.
So I love that. They've done a study with radical remission. So, and this is important. And then I'm going to talk to you about Thailand for a minute or share with you in Thailand. So radical remission, people who reversed their cancers and got better, there was a through line with forgiveness, with radical forgiveness. And this is so important. And I think that any oncologist listening out there, if you were able to, because you have a pool of people to incorporate some of this and then document this, you would be one of the leaders in spiritual teachings out there because you can talk. But I also then want, and I know Harvard did a study on forgiveness, and it's so, so important. But when I was in Thailand and I worked, one of the last doula givers trainings I did was in a temple where people would come for the end of life, very serious illness. They had a 4 point system of how they were doing their treatments. One, they took all the sugar out of the diet. So it was a completely plant-based diet. They did yoga, they did meditation, and they did forgiveness.
Mm.
And Karen, I was in circles with patients. One, I remember he was 32 years old, dying of pancreatic cancer, and he was beaming, beaming. And he said, this is the happiest time I have ever been in this temple because of the levity, because of what was released from forgiveness. So I don't know if he was able to go back home. I don't know what happened, but just hearing people talk about how happy they were in this space because of that forgiveness. I know it was because of that forgiveness practice. And I know they felt really good meditating, connecting with their heart. Can't we bring this into the practice of being practitioners, of nurses and doctors?
And as you said, it's even been studied. I mean,
Yes.
it has been studied. We know that it changes things. We know that it makes a difference. And I mean, I don't know what it will take to make it come to mainstream awareness in the medical system itself, but
I think what's happening is because we're getting so many people too that are coming to doula givers because they couldn't work in the system anymore. They were physically, emotionally, and spiritually bankrupt. I mean, one woman said she couldn't even walk to her car after. I think that they're being forced to leave, and they should never be in a system that doesn't care about them. And then they can create practices where they can be holistic practitioners and they can incorporate what we just talked about, all of the wellness at the root of it. So I want you to hear this, doctors, nurses that are out there, you can have your own practices in the, and again, I think this is the future is functional medicine, health medicine is getting really to the root of it and incorporating the forgiveness and that into these practices. Because this is the real healthcare that we've always wanted. This is the real healing of why you went into the field. And this is what's going to not only make a difference transformationally for patients, but for you as well as a practitioner.
mm. And
Yeah.
there's one just simple mindset shift that I always think of, at least for me, I'm trained in family medicine where we look at the whole person and the
Hmm.
whole lifespan, except we look at the stages of development, but they kind of end at adulthood. Like, oh, you once you're an adult, like then you're not, there aren't any more stages of development, which is so far from the truth. But
Yeah.
what if we incorporated additional stages? Like
For
even
every decade.
for every decade and even the end of life stage, which doesn't correlate
Mhm.
with any particular age, but there should be ways of recognizing this person has entered their end of life stage. It's when their focus has turned. They're looking more toward their final days, and their view is different and what they need is different. They're in the end of life stage now, but there's also a stage called dying itself, death, after death. That
Yeah.
we need to study all of those stages. That's how we look at a whole person, complete life, comprehensive view.
I love that. And the other thing that really always was and is when I can't even sometimes want to say it, but my oncology patients would tell me that they felt that they got dropped from their oncology doctors when they got put on hospice, that many times they tried to call them and they wouldn't accept their phone calls anymore and all that. And here's somebody now on hospice, in their last part of life and really, really suffering with this pain of having somebody that they had a relationship with, feeling that they were dropped by them and they're not there. And so the through line of having doctors continue on, even oncologists, if you can't do it yourself, having maybe, a death doula, doula givers be the bridge to that so that people don't feel that they've been dropped. Because I know that's not what you mean to do, but that's how people do. And so it was a major, an additional suffering. And also, I've been told by hospice patients that after the loved one died, they felt like hospice disappeared on them as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we can do better and we must do better.
Those are business related decisions.
Yeah, they are. Aren't they all, though?
Yeah, they are. It's true.
So if we changed our perspective, and I know that you love talking about this, that the win, instead of being the bottom line financially, couldn't the win be the quality of care that we provide this patient family that they have one opportunity to do? Can I walk away, which is, by the way, how I deem my value, being of service, not about a dollar amount, not there, but did what I provided, did my presence, did my education, and did me showing up provide a shift for that patient and family? If it did, then that's a win. And I go for the win every time. And if I helped one family, then I did something. And if we can help many more, then let's do that as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Karen, you've got such good education. Tell us about your podcast and your books and how people can follow up with you.
Yeah, the podcast is End of Life University podcast it's on all the main platforms,
It's
Apple,
so good.
and I've been doing it for a long time now, for like 12 years and interviewing so many people. I have over 500 episodes now, but interviewing people in all aspects of end of life work. And so it's very eclectic. I don't
Mhm.
focus on any one topic because that's how I am. I like learning about everything. So I talk to everyone. But I have had a lot of people tell me found out, they learned what they needed to know through the interviews I did. And it is also becoming a hub for people doing this work
Yeah.
who are looking for a community or looking for someone like them who's also doing the work. And they might hear an interview with someone and reach out. They become friends or they start collaborating and working together. I've seen that happen over and over. So I'm really happy about that. And so
Mhm.
I have a website, eoluniversity.com. The podcast is linked there, and my books are there also, and how to get a hold of the books.
Yeah, you have so much good information. So not just your podcast, you have courses and you have some books. And so there's really something, and I love that you said it's eclectic because there's something for everyone, whether you are a spiritual seeker or, challenged with grief or wanting to learn more of the practical side of things. You really do have it all there, which is really wonderful. And again, it's just showing up in service, and you do that almost better than anyone that I know. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. One of the best comments I ever heard was from a young man who wrote and told me one of his good friends was dying on the other side of the country, and he was driving across country to go be there before his friend died to be able to say goodbye to him. And he was terrified. He said, "I knew absolutely nothing about death, no experience. How do I even be there? What do I say?" And he found the podcast. He said he listened to podcast episodes on the entire drive across the country. By the time he got to his friend's bedside, he said, "I wasn't afraid anymore. And I knew to be present, and I knew to just tell him that I loved him and be there with him." And he said, "Thank you, thank you." That touched my heart.
Oh,
I
it's
don't know if
everything.
it's worth doing this. Yeah.
So let's hone into that, and maybe it's a good way to wrap up because learning the truth about end of life allows you to a few things. Be present with those, and that's the gift. If you're not present, you're not being able to help them, but you're not also going to be able to be in that space of those last conversations. But also, when we know the truth about end of life, we understand that, wait a minute, death is not the end, it's a profound transition. And when you hear from people who tell you what they're seeing and what families are experiencing, you will not only not be afraid of it, you will be inspired about life and how much more is going on here. So I think this is one of the greatest teachers about how to live. I think our world is starving for this today. And when you go to your podcast or step into this space, with the book or however you want to find it, it'll change your life in every way in the best ways possible. So step in, step in.
Yeah, so very true. And it's not nearly as scary as it seems. And you have to take that first step in order to find that out. But trust us, we're not leading you astray. This is where each one of us needs to go ultimately on our journeys.
It does. And again, it changed my life immediately because I live each day with a different perspective that changed my whole life. And it does for people that step into this space. But I also know that each one of us will be called to care for somebody at the end of life. And knowing how to do that changes everything. So there's so much free information on your podcast, on your website. You can get it from us as well. But step into this space and we're here to support you. So, Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. You're absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. I love talking with you. I love everything we've ever done together. I cherish. And
I
so,
agree. It goes out into the world and it's all heart centered and heart guided. So thank you again. We'll put all of your links below. And so I want to thank everyone for being again part of the Good Death podcast. You know that we have the Good Death live book club experience that's going on now. So if you want to join it, it's free. The link is below as well. Step into this space and community that is helping to create the new world that you know that we're doing right now, and we're doing it together. So thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you in the next episode.